If you've built AWS projects and you're still not getting any interviews as a cloud engineer, then this is probably why. Now, most people think that it works like this. You build some projects, you put them on your GitHub, you add them to your CV, you apply for jobs, and then the interviews should just come. But that's not how it works because projects, they don't create interviews directly. Projects have to firstly create trust, and then the trust creates the interviews. So the real flow is not projects into interviews. It's actually projects into trust and trust into interviews. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. They have the projects, but those projects do not create enough trust. They don't make the hiring manager think that, okay, this person who's applied for this job can actually solve cloud problems. They make the hiring manager think, did this person actually understand this? Or did they follow a tutorial? And that is the gap that you have to bridge. Your projects are your proof, but only if you build trust. So this is what most people are doing. They watch a video on YouTube, they copy the AWS build, they put it onto their GitHub, they add some generic bullet points to their CV, they apply for jobs, and then they get 0 interviews. And I know it sounds harsh, but from the employer side, right, from the other side, it makes a lot of sense because the projects, they exist, but they don't create any trust, right? The hiring manager can't tell if you made the decisions. They can't tell if you understood the architecture. They can't tell if you debugged anything. They can't tell if you know what you would change if you are deploying to production. All they see is yet another AWS project that looks like every other AWS project, right? For example, the Cloud Resume project. Everyone's seen that one, and that is the real issue. It's not that the projects in itself are useless. It's that generic projects, they don't create any trust. And this is the most important shift, right? So a tutorial teaches you the how, and an interview tests you on the why. So a tutorial tells you, click here, use this service, copy that command, deploy it in this way. But in an interview, they're going to ask you, why EC2 over Lambda? Why RDS and not DynamoDB? Why private subnets? How would this scale? What breaks first? How would you monitor it? What would you change in production? And if your real answer is because the tutorial did it in this way, well, then you're cooked because now they know that you followed the steps, but you don't actually understand the decision behind why you build the projects in this way. And that's the difference between a tutorial project and a project that actually counts as experience. Now, the project in itself, it's not the proof. Your thinking, your reasoning, and your decision making is what's actually the proof. Now, so how does a project actually become experience? Well, it needs this flow. Firstly, you need a real problem. Not that I wanted to learn S3. That's not a real problem. A better problem is that I wanted to deploy a secure web application where the database is not publicly accessible. Then you need the requirements, right? What matters here? Security, cost, availability, scalability, simplicity. Then the architecture decisions. This is the big one. Why this design? Why these services? Why this security model? Then the AWS build. That's where you actually go and build it and deploy it. Then you break it, you fix it, you troubleshoot it. Because in the real world, when you're building on cloud projects for companies, for clients, all this kind of stuff, the real world is very messy. Things go wrong all the time. Identity breaks, security groups are wrong, Terraform deployments fail, the application can't connect to the database, the servers get overloaded. That's completely normal. So you don't want to hide any of that in your project. You want to show it. Then you've got production thinking. So production thinking is about how would this project run if real users depended on it? How would you monitor it? How would you back it up? How would you secure it? What happens if traffic spikes, right? Then the documentation, which is very important because it needs to tell a story. Your README should not just be setup commands. It should explain your thinking. Then we've got the CV and the interview story. Because if you can't explain the project clearly enough, it won't help you. And all of this together creates hiring trust. And that is how a project becomes experience. Not because you deployed something, right? It's because you can explain your whole thinking from the problem all the way to the solution. Now, if you're serious about landing a six-figure cloud role, there's a link in the description below to book a call with my team. We are busier than ever right now because we are getting results virtually like this every single week. We also have a completely free school community with resources to get you started. Again, link in the description below. Let's keep it very, very simple. Your projects need to prove 5 different things. Number 1, the problem. What real problem does it solve? Not that I wanted to learn AWS. That is not enough. Number 2, decisions. Why these services? Why this design? Why this security model? This is where you start sounding like an actual engineer. Number 3, troubleshooting. What broke? How did you fix it? Do not hide this. This is where a lot of trust comes from. Number 4, production thinking. How would you monitor it, secure it, back it up, scale it? What would you change if this was used by a real business? Number 5, packaging. How does it show up in your CV? How are you positioning it? How does it look on GitHub? Can you explain it in an interview? Because you may have built something very decent, but if you describe it badly, it won't convert, right? The projects exist, but these 5 things really make it count. So this is the real comparison. A tutorial project says that I followed the steps, copied the architecture, made no real decisions, have no troubleshooting story, a weak README, generic CV bullet points. This creates very, very low trust. A hireable project says that I solved a real problem. I made the architecture decisions. I broke things and I fixed them. I thought about production. I documented it properly. I can explain the story in an interview. This creates high trust. It's the exact same effort, but completely different signal. And this is why some people build projects and they still get ignored. Because the projects are there, they built them, but the signal around the project is completely weak. Something to really think about is that the market does not reward the effort. It simply doesn't. The market only rewards one thing, and that is proof. And here is another mistake that people make. People think that they need to make harder projects, right? This is not always the case. A complex project that you copied, but you can't explain, does absolutely nothing for you. A simple project that you understand deeply is way more powerful. I would personally, as a hiring manager, as a business owner, as someone that's been in many, many interviews for all sorts of companies, from Fortune 500 to startups to governments, right? I would rather see a very basic VPC project where you can explain every single decision than a massive Kubernetes project that you copied from YouTube and you can't defend. An important lesson to take away here is that complexity doesn't get you hired. Clarity does. The goal is not to impress people that don't even know you with how complicated your project looks and how technically brilliant it is. The goal is to make them understand what you built and why you built it and how you built it, right? The reasoning, the decision making from problem to solution. Now look at the difference in the packaging here. 2 projects. A bad version would be that I built an AWS project using EC2 and RDS. That means absolutely niche. It doesn't even show skill. It doesn't show decisions. It doesn't show value. A better decision is I designed and deployed a secure 3-tier AWS architecture using VPC, EC2, RDS, IAM, CloudWatch with private database access, monitoring, and documented production improvements. Now, you can see these are 2 exactly the same things, but worded completely differently. Same project, completely different signal. From this, I can see what you actually did. I have something to ask you about in an interview. This is why packaging and the story behind it, the positioning, matters a lot. Your CV is not just a list of things that you've touched, right? It's supposed to make someone believe that you can actually solve problems. So here's what I want you to do. Don't go and build yet another random AWS project tonight. Order the best one that you have and ask yourself, what real problem does it solve? What decisions did I make and why? What broke and how did I fix it? What would I change in production? Can I explain it clearly in 2 minutes? If you can't answer those questions, the project is not interview ready yet, and nor are you. And that's completely fine, right? This is not failure. This is process. This is clarity. Now, based on this, you know what to fix. Because the problem is not that you are lazy. You're building the project, you're putting in the effort. The problem is not that you're incapable. The problem is that nobody has shown you what it takes to make a project that's credible to employers, right? You've been building the projects, but you haven't been turning them into actual proof. And that is the whole game. So if your AWS projects aren't getting you cloud engineer interviews, the answer is not always to just build more projects. The answer is diagnose what you already have. Are they too generic? Do they lack decisions? Do they lack troubleshooting? Do they lack production thinking? Are they packaged badly? Can you explain them properly? Because if you don't know what's broken, you simply cannot fix it. And if you want my help landing a six-figure cloud role, then check the link in the description below. We help you build the right projects, position them correctly, explain them so you sound like an engineer in interviews. So if that sounds like you, join the free school community or applying for a cloud strategy goal below. As always, I'm rooting for you and become undeniable.